Today's Mac Voices is supported by Smile and the various flavors of PDF Pen. See how PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro, and PDF Pen for iOS can help you do more with your PDFs at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I should be at NAB right now, but I'm not because nobody is. But that doesn't mean we don't get to talk to some of the folks who we would have talked to had we been there. So I'm happy to welcome back to the show Jon Bach of Puget Systems to talk about what Puget Systems does and how they might fit in with the Apple ecosystem. Jon, it's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a year since we last met at NAB, and it's good to be here again.
Yeah, I know. Shouldn't we? It would be great if we could both be in Vegas, but I don't think anybody's in Vegas, judging by the pictures I've seen.
No, I'm sure it's a ghost town.
Yeah, unfortunately. But we're ensconced in our respective home offices, and I wanted to take the opportunity to just introduce the folks who might not have seen our coverage from last year to Puget Systems, explain what you do, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, well, and maybe a little explanation as to why I'm on like an Apple focused outlet here.
I wasn't going to bring that up, Jon.
Right. So, we've been in business 20 years. So Puget Systems, we design and manufacture high performance workstations. And where we really thrive, where we really get excited is when we can help others do their work. And so a lot of times we'll work with people for machines for content creation or engineering or scientific computing. And obviously, when we're dealing with content creation PCs, there's no getting away from the fact that Apple is has such a strong offering in that segment. And what we're trying to do is connect people to the best tools for their job. So we do a lot of testing. Anytime like Adobe releases new software, or anytime Intel puts out a new processor, or AMD puts out a new platform, we'll go back and we'll do all the testing of all the different platforms on both the PC side and the Mac side, and we can publish where the best performance is and what the best hardware recipes people should use for the specific work that they're doing, whether that's on the Mac side or on the PC side.
Now, I know I'm going to get the same emails too. What is Puget Systems doing here? But I think it's important sort of to look at the higher end areas and workstations and all that we would normally get to talk about a little bit at NAB. And since last year, we have a new Mac Pro, which, by all accounts on our side of the fence is obviously the king of the hill. But I want to find out how, in your judgment, that compares to some of the high-end workstations on the other side of the fence, or to some of the high-end workstations that you personally can, your company, I should say, can customize and build.
Yeah, well, the new Mac Pro is a really inspiring machine. It's beautiful. It's well designed. One of the first things that we did when it released was we got one, and we have one in our lab. And so, what we're doing is, honestly, part of it is, we're testing PC versus Mac to see, what is the performance for your dollar and how do they compare. And so, on our website, you can go and you can see, actually, we've released a number of articles on anything from like Photoshop to Premiere Pro, or, if on the PC side on like DaVinci Resolve, and we can show performance side by side. And, the Mac Pro is a very expensive machine as well. So now we're in a position where on the PC side, you can get quite a bit more performance for the dollar. And we just go through the benchmarks to show that. But honestly, we're not here to try to create PC converts from Mac users. We're here because we have a number of Mac users that have decided to make that jump. But, you go from a world where the Apple ecosystem is so locked down, which is its strength as well as its weakness. It's so locked down. You go to the PC side, and now it's there's so many choices, and so people just want to know, well, what's the best choice? If I'm making the move from Mac to PC, what is the best choice? And that's what our testing uncovers. It lets us show that, okay, if you're doing red footage and 4K and you're editing in Premiere, or you're using After Effects, that these specific hardware specs is what you should be looking for your specific work.
And there are reasons that you might want to talk about doing some of this in conjunction with your Mac Pro, or for that matter, your iMac Pro or whatever.
True.
For example, if you're going to go with Final Cut and that's what you're working in, you're going to buy a Mac. There's there's no
Hmm.
way around it. If you're working though in some of the Adobe products or some of the other nonlinear editors, you might be able to bounce back and forth so that do a lot of your work in the Mac environment and then send it over to the kind of boxes that you build for the rendering and the not post production, but I guess the the processor intensive stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that feel like, um, when you're talking Mac versus PC, that it's like it's a binary decision. Like either you're on a Mac or you're on a PC, and then that's not the reality that we see when we work with a lot of small independent studios or even the big studios. What we see is a mixed environment where you have some users on Mac, some users on PC, or users that have both. And for one program, they'll use the PC side. For another program, they use the Mac side. And so the role that we're just trying to fill here is to help, kind of facilitate those decisions and not make them this big, like 800-pound gorilla decisions. Make them a little bit more bite-sized. Something that is a decision that's tailored like just for the specific work that you're doing. It doesn't have to be this big, unwieldy decision when you're looking at things like that.
So I find that really interesting that you say a lot of the studios you work with are mixed. Is
Hmm.
that out of necessity, you think, or out of preference, or is it just the way the world is now that you have to speak both languages?
Well, yeah, I mean, so it's almost the same as this like bring your own device to a workplace kind of concept. I think some of it is you have talent that you're bringing into your studio, and each person has their own preferences and strengths and programs that they know, and so you need to bring in the tools that best match the individuals that you have on your staff. But then other times, yeah, it is just comes down to performance. That there are for certain programs, I mean, obviously like Final Cut's not one of them, but for other programs where for the same budget you could get maybe twice or three times as many machines on the PC side as you would on the Mac side. So sometimes just it's budget based, but most of the time it comes down to workflow preferences and facilitating that for the people that you have.
We had part of this conversation last year about the idea that Macs are theoretically more secure, and I know I'll get emails. Sorry, but anyway, um, yeah, they're theoretically more secure. They are theoretically a bit less prone to needing some of the under the hood work, especially if you have one or two specific use cases, and that's. As you explained to me, that's sort of where Puget Systems comes in because you try to take some of the hassles associated with maintaining PCs out of the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the blessing and the curse of the PC side is there's so much that's possible with it. So, which gives us all the ingredients that we need to go put together a really purposely made workstation. And by doing that, we can make something that's either much faster at the job, or more budget friendly. For the same dollar, you can get more performance on the PC side. But with that, big expansive ecosystem also comes, like you said, more threats, more need for maintenance. It is not as like I guess just maintenance free as the Mac side. And so the role that we play in coming in and saying, well, don't worry about that like big mess of the PC side. Let's pare that down to like just the parts that are good for you. And we bring our expertise in, knowing the post production workflow, knowing the work of the content creators, knowing that just as well as we know the hardware, means that we can make it's almost like a more Apple like experience on the PC side. We can take care of a lot of the pains. Internally we even say like anytime that there's a pain that we have, it's almost a good thing because we're taking that on so that the end user doesn't. And that's our whole goal. What kind of pains can we take on the PC side so that the end user can just get back to work? That's what we value is anytime that the content creator is not performing their craft, if they're messing around with their computer, that's not time that they're being productive and they're supporting themselves and their own income.
So, under the heading of full disclosure, I have not had experience with PCs in a production environment. I have had plenty of experience with PCs in a business environment, home environment, and I know that I mean, there's just no way around it. Objectively, they require a lot more work, and they're a
Hmm.
lot more hassle. And one of the problems always that in my experience that I run into is the the conflicts between peripherals and drivers.
Mm,
I mean,
mm,
to your, as you said, there are a lot
yep.
of things that, if you're building, and especially if you guys, if you're building a box, I mean, it's one thing to go to Best Buy and pick up, a name brand or no name brand laptop. They're going to be plugging things in. You guys are building custom boxes. That means, at least in my mind, you're including DVD or Blu-ray drives. You're including, RAIDs. You're including custom graphics accelerators. You're doing a lot of stuff. So,
Mhm.
are you the one that are taking on the management of the drivers and the compatibility of all that?
Yeah, well, to an extent. I mean, there is more on the Windows ecosystem side. Like anytime a Windows update happens, there are definitely pain points around those types of things. I think that there's two things that we bring to the table. One is providing a customized solution is actually just as much about what you remove from the equation than what you add. And so, yeah, we do sell a lot of workstations with like multiple graphics cards or RAID configurations or capture devices and that type of thing, but only when needed. If somebody doesn't need a Blu-ray drive or an optical drive, we don't put it in the workstation. Why buy it if you're not going to use it? And even beyond budget, why have that complex or add another piece of complexity to your situation if you're not even going to use it? So a lot of times it's talking about what we remove from the configuration so that you don't have to deal with that stuff in the first place. Have a more simple configuration. But then second, it's just about active management. I think the biggest difference between like going to Best Buy or like building your own computer is, if you build your own, you don't really have anywhere to turn to when you have problems like that. You go to Best Buy and you're going to be calling some, 800 number, who knows what country it'll go to. And, you're going to get your kind of canned answers. Have you tried rebooting the computer? Things like that. So by working with a smaller company like Puget Systems, first of all, we understand the workflow. We understand the work that you're trying to do. And so we don't have to beat around the bush. We can talk to you in language that is not computer language. It's actually the language of editors or visual effects artists. And if there's a driver issue, something like that, we can just remote into the computer. We can take care of it. We can be done. It's actually just a couple minutes for a lot of the things that come up. So really, it's not about like selling a workstation and then disappearing on you. The way that we approach a business is more like we are here to make sure that you are up and running. And if you have any challenges to your workflow where your computer is not providing that experience for you, then just fire off an email, give us a call, and we can step you through over the phone how to fix that, or we can just remote in and do it for you. It doesn't actually have to turn into that big of a deal.
You just used the phrase active management, which is probably a very, very, I don't know if you use capital A, capital M for active management, but that does feel like sometimes what is needed on the on the Apple side, on the Windows side, excuse me, to
Mm.
make it a more Apple Mac-like experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much changing. Again, it's the benefit of the PC side is it's this big Swiss Army knife where it can do anything, but that's also the reason why it has so many more problems. And so yeah, it's about keeping an eye on things actively, and don't wait to be surprised by a problem when it comes up. Let's deal with it. Make sure that it's working properly all the time, and then it doesn't get in the way at like right before you have a deadline of a project. That's the worst time to deal with another Windows update.
Yeah, and that's always exactly the time that you're going to end up having to deal with it, is right before that deadline.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I'm a small to medium sized independent studio and I buy a box
Hmm.
from you,
Hmm.
how long do you maintain that level of support? And is it
Yeah,
is it well, you got to ask. I mean,
yeah,
is
no,
it something that is for the life of the box, or am I buying a support contract, or how does that work?
yeah, no. I only laugh because no, it is lifetime. It's a lifetime of the box. And I guess it maybe sounds unbelievable, but honest, I'll give you like the real honest answer of why we can do that is because things are so fast paced in the world of content creation that once a box is 3, 5, 6 years old, there's very few people that haven't already moved on to the next generation of thing. And so we say that as long as you want to continue to run on that hardware, we're going to continue to support it. Now, there is a expiration date on how long like those parts are being made. So 10 years from now, I'm probably not going to be able to replace your motherboard if that fails. They're just not in production anymore. But things that we can do from our labor standpoint, from time on the phone, remoting into your computer, guiding you through maybe upgrades, guiding you through problems that you have, that's lifetime. There's no expiration date on that.
That's impressive. I mean, it's a great business model. Everybody in today's world is trying to figure out how to compete. And certainly that can present some challenges for you all and some definite costs that are unpredictable. But it certainly is a heck of a way to compete if I'm investing that kind of money in a box like that I'm dependent on. I'm probably going to look at you guys first as opposed to going to that Best Buy or any other manufacturer and just buying something that they've put together.
Yeah, I really think on the PC side, especially, you really need to have somebody that can be that like trusted partner to you that can, not just sell a box and then disappear on you. In fact, it's 80% of the business that we do is either word of mouth or repeat business, and I'm actually really proud of that because first of all, it's evidence that we're actually doing a good job. We're actually really truly taking care of people, but also having that dependency on that from us having that dependency on that. Like it keeps us honest. It forces like we have to perform. We actually have to provide that service, or that source of where that business comes from us wouldn't be there. So it really does. It aligns all of our goals. We have to keep you up and running, and because we keep you up and running, you keep us up and running by coming back and referring others to us. So it's a great relationship.
MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of TextExpander, the most used utility on my Mac. I keep finding new uses for TextExpander. Text that I type repeatedly is a prime obvious candidate, but there are other things. Filling in a chat room name in a program that can't be saved but that I use regularly. Even URLs of frequently used sites are a piece of cake with TextExpander and are often easier than using a bookmark. And that's just for me as an individual. If you have a team that offers support or interfaces with anyone outside your organization, or even just internal customers, TextExpander helps you keep responses consistent, concise, and easy to access by deploying them across your team. If you value accuracy, and who doesn't, and you find yourself regularly misspelling a word, a name, or something else, set up a TextExpander snippet to automatically correct it for you. Fill out forms, select responses to a query from a menu. The options go on and on. And if you want to get more out of TextExpander, be sure to head over to textexpander.com and watch for the notifications of webinars that are being offered regularly, not just to get you up and off the ground with TextExpander, but also to move you from beginner to intermediate to advanced. You should be using TextExpander, period. So do yourself a favor and visit smilesoftware.com/podcasts to pick up a demo of TextExpander and find out what I know and what so many productivity-oriented people know. The TextExpander is an essential utility for getting things done. That's TextExpander by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Find out more at smilesoftware.com/podcasts. Thanks to Smile for their ongoing support of MacVoices. Jon, how do you handle, obviously, if I have a problem, I call you, you work me through it, or hopefully can work me through it. But how do you handle situations where a Windows update or a driver update comes out and you know it's going to cause trouble? Is that something you do proactively to let folks know that, hey, you may not want to do this upgrade?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we'll do for when we have trending issues like that, a Windows update to avoid, we'll end up posting on our website. We have basically like knowledge base articles for our users, and we can filter that down to like what applies to you. And so your configuration is affected by some problem we have. It can show up on your view that this is an article that applies to you, that applies to your configuration. That's what we do most of the time. There's a few times, it doesn't happen very often, but there's a few times where there's a problem severe enough that we will actually proactively like email out everyone that is affected by that configuration to give instructions on what to do. Like make sure you don't like get into a bad place. Let's save you from it before you even get there.
Yeah, and I think production people are probably a little more aware of some of those issues and don't jump quite as often or quite as quickly because they know what can happen.
And that's the other thing that we do. Actually, we ship all of our computers with a very fixed like Windows update schedule. You can change that all as by your own preferences. But I think one of the worst things you can do as a Windows user is to jump on all the Windows updates right when they come out. Let somebody else vet the quality of those updates. Personally, I defer everything 30 to 60 days, and we advise the same thing for our end users as well.
That's, it's really interesting because you're in the business of keeping those machines up and running. The security people out there right now are probably having a stroke because 30 to 60 days, oh my God. And that's a tough balancing act to do. Is try you want to,
It can be.
if you know there's a threat out there, you want to protect yourself, but on the other hand, you got to get your work done.
Well, and it depends on the nature of the update. So obviously, when things like the oh, I can't think of the name of it for now, but the Intel processor exploits that were all, there's a whole string of them in the last few years. Obviously, those, no, we apply those updates. But if we're talking about like a performance improvement driver to your video card, there's not a lot of security tied to that. That's more about back-end performance. And most of the time, especially when it comes to like video card upgrades, those are mostly about like providing optimizations for the new games that are coming out. So like, who cares when it comes to your Adobe Premiere work? So, it depends on the type of driver update and the type of firmware update, but we can guide through the ones that you probably should jump on versus the ones that, are best to let sit for a little while.
What kind of pricing level? I mean, I'm sure that you can probably build me pretty much anything I want, but at the same time, how low do you go, and
Mm.
who would you recommend come to you as opposed to going to that Best Buy and picking up that no name box for what they're doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because the type of the work that we do, where we are tailoring hardware to specific workloads, that's a very time-intensive process. It's a lot of work for us, and that's a lot of work for even an end user to like research, have all the conversations back and forth with us, talking about their work. And obviously, that doesn't make a lot of sense for us to do, or for you to do as a consumer, for like just a home email box. So we don't tend to work with very many like low end entry level configurations. I'd say most of our customers are in like the $3,000 to $5,000 range for the types of workstations that they'll end up buying, and that's still actually pretty competitive against. It's amazing actually what you can get these days for even like $3,000 to $5,000, because hardware has come so far in recent years. But yeah. I mean, if the workload that you're doing is not very intensive, then our process probably doesn't pay off as well as it does for like the really intensive workloads. So we tend to see pretty high end workstations.
Yeah, and I mean, frankly, I'm surprised that you are at that level
Mm,
because you think about somebody that's going to build a custom box for me. I would have
mm.
thought that you'd have been quite a bit higher than that. So the fact that I can get into a custom box with your service and the backup that you give, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, the sky's the limit with what we can do. But the fun thing, or the thing that we really enjoy being able to tell people, is a lot of people will come into us thinking that they need something different than they do. And there's a lot of legacy information out there of like, you need dual socket systems, or you need multiple disks in RAID 5 or RAID 0. And there's been so much advancement in technology recently, that it's great to be able to tell somebody like, I know your budget's $10,000. You actually don't need to spend that to do what it is that you need to do. Or paradoxically, there's a lot of times we can tell people, if you spend less, you can get a faster computer than if you spend more. The way that cores scale across each other, multiple socket systems oftentimes don't scale very well than single socket systems. And so it's about getting the right hardware, not the most expensive hardware. And it's great to be able to guide people through that, to be able to actually save people a lot of money not making the wrong choice for their work.
Do you do this kind of off the wall, but do you do just production machines or do you do things that might be more for an office environment?
I mean, we do. Like I said before, if there's not a lot of complexity to the workload, then there's not like a lot of value that we bring to the equation. So we don't tend to do as much like just general purpose PCs. Most of the PCs that we support are there for like a really specific purpose, and most of that for us is in content creation, like post production, visual effects, rendering. Or on the scientific side, we have a whole lot going on, like right now in like molecular dynamics, with all the coronavirus studies going on, or like AI, machine learning, self-driving cars, automated factories. So really like high compute situations. In those cases, it isn't necessarily about um, how to save on budget. In those cases, it's how do we maximize output. Especially like with machine learning, the demand for compute is just insatiable, and so the service that we provide is like how to maximize. There's certain hardware recipes that just perform better, or we can step users through how to actually set up their software projects. So there's a whole I'm going on a little tangent here. There's a whole series that we
Go.
have put out by Dr. Kinghorn, who's on staff with us, where he'll talk about like how to set up your dev environment and what math libraries to use and how to set up optimizations in your code, because there's so much performance that's left on the table. And our what gets us passionate is when we can like let's take that performance and put it back on the table. We want people to make the best use of their hardware that they can, and sometimes that's not even about the hardware. That's about guiding people through how to set up their work.
So you just taken me to a whole another area of your company that I didn't even know existed.
Mm.
So you actually get involved with the coding that is going to run on the boxes.
Yeah, I mean that again is very time intensive. So there's kind of limits on how deep we can go down that rabbit hole. But we peek down that rabbit hole. Again on our website, Dr. Kinghorn is posting. He's doing a whole series right now on how to set up a Jupyter notebook set up for machine learning. And so anybody who's getting into that on the development side can go through his series and kind of get that help setting up their environment.
It sounds like you are really well positioned right now, especially as you said with the COVID-19 modeling, with machine learning, with AI, with all these things. The need for bandwidth is for computational power is just skyrocketing, and so unless I need to be locked into a specific platform, why wouldn't I call you and buy a custom box with the support and with the knowledge that I'm getting the most bang for the buck?
Yeah, well, if we can help, we'd love to. The challenge in like how quickly the world is changing right now is there's just a lot of chaos. Things are moving at breakneck speed, and that's awesome. It's actually really exciting, but it's also there's a lot of unoptimized situations going on, and we're optimizers at our heart. And so when we can come in and we can help somebody work through a problem, we can take, like I said before, like we can take that big messy decision and we can simplify it down into like, okay, for the work that you're doing, this is what you should be considering. This is a hardware recipe that would work best for you.
Yeah, look, that race car looks great going down the track into the turn,
Sure.
but then when they lose it, it's you peel them off the wall. John, where can we send folks to learn more? Because I'm sure there are a lot of questions that need to be answered before someone even decides to engage your services.
Yeah, well, so you can start just on our website, pugetsystems.com, and from there, if you go to our publications section, you can start going down the rabbit hole for yourself of all the studies that we do, all of the benchmarks that we provide, all the recommendations that we make. But we realize that who wants to go to our website and read 50 articles? So ultimately, what we want to do is just have conversations. So you just find the phone number on our website, give us a call, and it's been fun to run an organization where um, there's not a single person in our company that will pick up the phone that you can't have a educated conversation with. You're not going to get any like Comcast experience. We know the work of creators, we know the work of scientists, of engineers, and we spend a lot of time and energy internally providing not only training but exposure into those communities, so that all of the people that we have that will pick up the phone actually know what they're talking about, can talk with you, and can actually talk more in your language, not computer language. And something that we would have been rolling out at NAB that we're rolling out now here as well that we're really excited about is there's a lot of people that might actually not be right to buy a Puget Systems workstation. Maybe they want to stay on Mac. Maybe they have a Dell contract. Maybe they're in Norway and we don't ship to Norway. We want to help the world optimize their work, whether or not they have a Puget Systems workstation. So we're actually rolling out a service where we will provide. You can purchase that consulting from us to help you understand your workload and what hardware is right for your workload. So let's say you're even looking to go buy a new Mac Pro. Well, which should you get, the 8 core? Should you get the 30 core? Yeah, what configuration is right for you? We can work with you through your work, look at the exact workflow that you have, the exact programs that we're using, and we can actually help tell you what the right configuration is for you. And that could potentially save you thousands and thousands of dollars by not going with the hardware that isn't best for your work.
And that's an outstanding service, especially if you have a specific workflow that you're buying the box for, instead of sort of the other way around, buy the box and then develop the workflow. So that's a great announcement, and it brings you potentially into the Mac space as well, and therefore gets people introduced to you, and everybody seems to win.
Yeah, exactly. And again, what gets us passionate is optimizing people's work, and that can happen on the Mac side. It can happen on the PC side. We're happy that we can help either way now.
Jon, it's always fascinating. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I did want to, the most important question though. You bought the Mac Pro, right?
Yes.
Yes. Are you buying the wheels for it?
No, sadly, we did not buy the wheels.
Okay. Well, they're still selling them now. They're pretty expensive, but you can get them.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you again so much. This is always enlightening, and I'm delighted to hear that you're even expanding some of the consulting over so that Apple people can take advantage of what you offer.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
I hope next year to see you in Vegas.
Yeah, we'll see. Hope so.
Yeah. Thanks again.
All right. Bye.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Yes, I know this was a little bit different kind of conversation for the show, but I really do think it's important that you know what's out there, kind of how the world works in certain areas. And we just found out that there's a new service that if you are in the production environment and need a little bit of consulting, Puget Systems is where you want to go. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.